Hello Griffins, and welcome to Alumni Week. My name is Susan. My company is All Things Preserved, and today we are going to make beeswax food wraps. So I'm going to give you a quick run through about what they are and why you should add them to your life. So if you don't know, beeswax food wraps are an environmentally friendly replacement for plastic wrap, wax paper, plastic snack bags in the kitchen. And they're made from natural fabric, usually cotton, and a combination of beeswax, locally sourced if possible, jojoba oil, this is organic jojoba oil, and pine resin. Pine resin is what helps them stick, so it gives them the same properties you're used to with plastic wrap, where it sticks to itself. Pine resin, as you know, is very sticky if you've ever touched a pine tree. And here we have some that has been crystallized. So we've melted it all together and infused fabric with this blend to make reusable beeswax food wraps. Really simple to use, really simple to keep in your kitchen. And how they work, once we've made them, is you wrap your food. I'm going to grab something here, like I have half an onion. Yes, it's a giant onion. And I'm going to put the cut side down. And then all I'm going to do is fold it. And the warmth of my hands is enough to soften the beeswax blend that's in the fabric. And it sticks to itself and forms a seal around the food and will keep it fresh. The awesome thing about using beeswax wraps compared to plastic wrap, a few reasons. Obviously, they're reusable, unlike plastic wrap. They are antibacterial. So beeswax by nature is antibacterial, which is wonderful because it keeps your food fresh. It allows a little bit of airflow and moisture flow, which again helps keep your food fresh. And at the end of the life of a beeswax wrap, which is after about 100 uses or so, they can be refreshed really easily, or they can be composted because they are all natural, or they can be turned into some other fun product like beeswax fire starters. So they can go in the fridge, and once they're refrigerated, they'll harden, so it's quite stiff, and you just take it out, let it soften for just a few seconds, and unwrap it, and then flatten it out like this. Place it under running water just to rinse it off. That's all you need to do to clean them. Lay them flat to dry. You can fold them if you want, or roll them to store them. I usually just fold it like that. And then keep reusing them. So we are going to get started making them. And I have DIY kits available. You can find them on my website, allthingspreserved.ca. So if you want to work along with me, then having a kit is a great option. It has everything you need. Well, we need a couple extra things. We need a heat-proof surface. So I have an ironing mat here, but you can just as easily use a folded towel or a sheet, something to protect your work surface. And we need an iron. So the iron is going to be on and set to a medium heat. Dry iron, medium heat. That's all you need, nothing fancy. So I'm going to take a look at what's in the kit, and I'll walk you through it. So they're wrapped sustainably with craft paper. A great packaging material, totally reusable, so I encourage you to find another purpose for the craft paper that this comes in. I'll set that aside. And then what we have is our kit. So you'll find a piece of parchment paper, and then inside here, I'm just going to turn this around, you'll find a bunch of beeswax chips. Now, like I said, I have already made the blend for you. So this is beeswax, pine resin, and jojoba oil, and I've melted it all together and formed these chips, so it's much easier to work with. So I'm just going to set those aside up here. And then the other thing you'll find is 3 pieces of cotton fabric. I'm going to start with the dark one simply because it's easier to show on camera. And I'm going to lay it down on my parchment paper so that I can sandwich the second layer of parchment on top of this. So what I'm going to do, make sure I get rid of any fuzzies that are on there. Otherwise they will be infused into the wax. The beeswax chips that I have in my kit, I'm going to take approximately 1/3 of them. Because I have 3 sheets of fabric, I am going to take, divide my beeswax into 3. And here's what I'm going to do. Doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to lay it down in the middle of my fabric. I don't want the pieces overlapping because that would take more energy for the iron to try and get through. It doesn't matter if you have too much or too little. We'll go over that. And just lay it down so they're touching. I'm going to, there we go. I'm going to set the other amount aside. And now I'm going to fold over my parchment to form a sandwich. This is basically to protect the iron. So I don't iron directly onto the beeswax. The beeswax is going to melt in between the parchment paper. So here we go. I'm going to take my medium iron. All I'm going to do is set it down. Yep, that's it. I don't need to move it around at this point. It is going to do all the work of melting the beeswax. I should probably fast forward. If you're impatient, you can press down. Do not turn the iron up, otherwise it will burn. Still perfectly functional beeswax food wraps, but a lovely burnt brown color. So you can see here by the darkness that my wax is melting, but there are still pieces that are not melted. So what I'll do is pick up the iron and move it over to the next section to melt the rest of the beeswax. It only takes a few seconds. It doesn't take very long at all. If you're unsure, you can certainly remove the iron, peel your parchment paper back, and take a quick look. It doesn't hurt if you peek at all. I'm impatient, so I'm pressing down here. And no, you don't want to be moving it around despite me doing that. And once all of the wax is melted, and you should be able to see through the parchment, but again, if not, peel the top layer back. Be careful, it is hot melted wax. Once it is all melted, you are going to use the side of the iron, not the point. The point will make a hole in the parchment, and you might end up with wax splashing around. You're going to take the side of the iron, and you're going to move the melted wax around the whole piece of fabric to cover all the surface of the fabric, particularly the corners. They tend to get neglected. You can move very slowly, and you can see it. You can see the wax moving, and you just make sure to cover all the corners. And if you don't have enough in one spot, you can kind of steal from another area and just move it over. Just move slowly, and try not to get too close to the edge of the parchment, otherwise you will end up covered in beeswax. Okay, now if you want to take a look, which I am going to just to show you, peel this back, and you will see that the whole thing is now covered. Mine folded up a little bit because I didn't put it on the parchment properly, so now it's covered, but you'll see there is extra beeswax around some of the edges. So I'm going to fold it back down, and I'm going to take my iron, start at one end, and very slowly I'm going to just push the iron from one end to the other. Make sure to cover the whole surface. And what this is going to do is going to remove any extra wax. That beeswax blend that we have down here can be reused. So if there's extra in between your pieces of parchment paper, they can be reused for the next piece of fabric. So I'm going to peel this back now. Keep in mind it is very hot melted wax. Give it a couple of seconds to cool. And then I need to pick it up by the two corners. Pick it up here, and guess what? You've made a beeswax food wrap. So you wave it around for a few seconds. It only takes about 15 seconds to cool. Make sure you inhale because it's awesome aromatherapy. And as soon as it gets a little bit stiffer and a little bit cooler, you're all done. You can set it down and make your next one. So depending on the temperature of your environment, it may take a little longer. And this one is ready to go. So So I'm going to set that one down here. And I'm going to take another piece of fabric, get rid of all the fuzzies again, and I can lay it right back on top of my beeswax work surface here. If there is a little bit of beeswax already on the parchment paper, it will just add to the new beeswax chips that I'm putting down, so it will all get reused. So I'm going to do one more with you. And if there are clumps of beeswax, try to separate them. Again, it just makes less work for the iron, so we're using, yes, less energy to make them. If when you're making it, or when you're finished making it, you look at it and you discover there's a part of your wrap that you haven't covered with beeswax, really simple fix. Put it back down in between the pieces of parchment paper and spread the wax around again. It doesn't hurt it to reheat it again. And you can do that even after it's cooled. You can go back if you need to touch it up, so you don't have to worry about that. Now we would use this exact same process to refresh your beeswax wraps. So if you've been using them, hopefully loving them, and you find at one point they're just not as sticky as they used to be. So you go to wrap a piece of food and it doesn't quite hold. All you need to do is put your wrap between two pieces of parchment paper. If you want to hang on to these, that's a great idea. Otherwise, put them in between the two pieces of parchment paper, grab yourself an iron, and just heat the whole thing. You don't need to add any more beeswax blend. There will be enough on there. What it really needs is it needs to be refreshed and redistributed. So by melting it and moving the iron around, that's all you need to do to refresh your wrap, and you'll have many more uses from it. At some point it will wear out where there isn't enough beeswax. We do sell refresher kits, or like I said, you can find another use here or you can compost it. So this one is all done, and now I'm going to play around with my beeswax to move it into the corners of the wrap. And if you're making these on your own, you can certainly experiment with different sizes of fabric, depending on your needs. So this one is all done. And this one I had some fun with, and you can do this as well. I used a rubber stamp and a water-based stamp pad to stamp my logo on here. So if you have any stamps, or if you have any kids that have stamps, this is a really fun thing to do. You can customize your wraps. So remember, inhale, give it a little wave. All right, and there you have it. Those are your beeswax food wraps. So in terms of care, once again, a quick rinse under the tap. If you do have something sticky on it, because it is waxed, food doesn't tend to stick to them very much. But if you do have something sticky like honey, peanut butter, or something like that, you can take a soft cloth or a sponge, a little bit of dish soap, warm water, not hot water, and give it a little scrub. Try and be gentle because you don't actually want to scrub the wax off. And they say not to use hot water to wash them. It is a personal choice. I hope you experiment because it takes a lot of heat to actually melt the wax. So you'd have to have really hot water for the wax to actually come off of your food wrap. So I tend to use fairly hot water in the kitchen to rinse them. And the only thing these cannot be used for is meat. Again, because they can't be washed in really hot water. They're great for cheese, they're great for snacks, they're great for cut vegetables, either the cut end of vegetables or to carry cut vegetables with you. Once you have them, you'll discover all the uses for them. Basically, if you're about to grab some plastic wrap or you're going to grab a plastic snack bag, choose beeswax food wraps instead. It'll become a habit and it'll become a sustainable habit, which is awesome. So I appreciate you watching, and I hope you check out my website, allthingspreserve.ca, for other tips about zero waste living and other eco-friendly products. And happy Alumni Week!